How's it going, everybody? Thank you very much for hanging out with me for a little bit. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr., back with you again. Just got back from a little camping trip with the family, and it's been a while since I've done one of these, so it is definitely time. So appreciate you being here with me for another classic movie review. And for this review, I've chosen one of my favorite all-time comedies. I'm a big fan of Joel and Ethan Coen, big fan of their early work, especially. Love their first film, Blood Simple, from 1984. Of course, I'm a big fan of Miller's Crossing, even Hudsucker Proxy. I love Fargo, love The Big Lebowski, and of course, can't forget about No Country for Old Men, and even the 2010 remake of True Grit. And the list goes on and on. They have such a great list of movies under their belt. But for me, my personal favorite Joel and Ethan Coen film is still 1987's Raising Arizona. This is a movie that for me just gets better and better and funnier with repeat viewings because Nicolas Cage and Holly Hunter, not to mention, of course, John Goodman, are all fantastic in this. And it's my favorite Nicolas Cage performance aside from Leaving Las Vegas. And he is funny as hell in this film as H.I. McDonough, someone who is, as I say early on in the film, a repeat offender. And he's a guy that gets arrested over and over again, goes back to jail over and over again, as they refer to it as recidivism, bonehead name, and to quote his character in the movie. And he meets Holly Hunter's character in the opening sequence, which is an epic opening sequence, one of my favorite openings of any movie. And they meet, they fall in love, they have an instant connection, and they decide that they want to start a family. But as it turns out, the opening of the film shows that they're not going to have any kids anytime soon because she's barren, apparently, as she finds out after going to a visit to the doctor's office. And yeah, I think my favorite way that it's put in the movie is the way his character puts it. Nicolas Cage's character puts it when he says her insides were a rocky place where his seed could find no purchase, I think is what he says. That's one of my favorite lines in the movie, actually. There's so many great lines all throughout, and he has a hilarious voiceover that accompanies the intro of the film, and is also there a little bit at the end to help close it out. And this movie just has a wacky premise. So after the beginning of the film establishes that our two main characters, Ed and H.I., are unable to conceive, one day they're sitting down watching television and eating dinner, and they see that a local retailer who goes by Nathan Arizona, who owns a store or a chain of stores that sells unpainted furniture of all things, he and his wife had just had 5 babies, and they're known as the Arizona quintuplets. And that's when H.I. and Ed get the idea that they got more than they can handle, and why not take one of these babies and raise them as one of their own. And after this happens, things get very, not just hectic, but out of control, especially when they had to explain where this baby came from, since they have acquaintances and friends and coworkers and people that just ask questions, and the stories that they have to sort of make up on the spot. Their performances in those moments are some of the best parts of the film. There's a great scene in the film where his boss, Nicolas Cage's boss, shows up with his kids and his wife played by Frances McDormand, in a small but very memorable part. And she has some terrific lines in the film as well. She has all kinds of great parenting tips for them. After a while, the pressures of family life start to sort of mount up for H.I., trying to be a good husband to Ed and a good father to young Nathan Jr., and combine that with trying to keep on the straight and narrow path and be a law-abiding citizen. It wears him down a bit, and that's another great thing about his performance is you can really see it messing with his head after a while, and then things don't really get any better for him once John Goodman shows up with William Forsythe, and they play a couple of old buddies of his that have just escaped from prison and are kind of a bad influence on the household, as Holly Hunter's character puts it. And once they enter the film, it really gets insane. And John Goodman is one of my favorite things about this movie. William Forsythe as his buddy in this movie is also very memorable. He's one of those guys that used to pop up back in the day in a lot of movies. I remember he was the FBI guy in The Rock. I remember he was a nice little connection with Nick Cage there. I remember he was the villain in Out for Justice from 1991. Cool Steven Seagal flick from back in the day. He was a pretty scary bad guy in that movie. So he's one of those guys that can play scary, can play tough, and can be funny as hell, as can be seen in 2000's Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo. He was the cop that would just sort of pop in out of nowhere and unzip his pants and reveal his thin dick, as you put it. Oh man, yeah. But yeah, this is just one of those movies that has a great cast, insane premise, and it's pulled off beautifully and expertly by two directors that were on their way to being some of the best directors of all time as far as I'm concerned. Something I have to mention, of course, is this standout sequence in the film that involves an on-foot chase with the Nick Cage character when it starts out in a robbery at a convenience store, and then things go south very quickly and it snowballs into this crazy chase with some of the best editing I've ever seen in any comedy. And for Joel and Ethan Coen to shoot this the way they did, they really didn't have to, but they put so much creativity and so much effort into the way they shot that sequence. This entire movie, in my opinion, was shot, acted, written, directed, edited to perfection, and it is one of my all-time favorite comedies, and it is my favorite Coen Brothers film. So I highly recommend this movie for anybody that enjoys their work. If anyone's trying to check out some of Nicolas Cage's older work, this is definitely one of his best performances in my humble opinion, and highly recommend this film. For me, this is a 4-star comedy, and I urge everybody to check this out. I have seen this film before, I believe on Hulu, different streaming services, but like I'm always saying, these movies do get switched around and taken off, so if you want to get yourself a hard copy, they're out there. This is my Blu-ray, and they're out there for the grabbing, so get yourself one. This is a funny as hell flick. And yeah, Joel and Ethan Coen, can't go wrong. So there you have it. If you're into these classic movies, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and look out for the next one. Thank you very much for watching, and take care of each other. Peace out.